This video is part 2 of the series, Progress on Spiritual Journey, Story of Peter and Anand, titled, Discovering the Real Enemy Within. This story is created by Rajeev Vashista for the Freedom for Eternity channel. In this part, we will continue the spiritual journey of Peter and Anand and see what happens next in their search for answers. Both of them are sincerely trying to understand why, despite their religious practices, they still struggle with anger, frustration, and inner conflict. As mentioned earlier, this story is not only about Peter and Anand. In many ways, this journey reflects the journey of each one of us. We all walk on a spiritual path in our own ways, belonging to different religions, traditions, and beliefs. Along the way, life presents us with situations that challenge us and make us question ourselves. Are we really progressing on our spiritual path? Or are we simply following rituals while our inner struggles remain the same? Through the experiences of Peter and Anand, we will continue exploring these questions. So let's begin part 2 of the story and see where their journey leads them next. If you enjoy meaningful stories like this, please like, share, subscribe, and comment, and do watch the video till the end. Progress on Spiritual Journey, Story of Peter and Anand, Part 2, Discovering the Real Enemy Within. Peter was lying on his bed, staring at the ceiling in deep despair. His body was still, but his mind would not stop. Again and again, the same scene returned before his eyes. The child, the shouting, the abusive words, the argument with Padre. He turned to one side, then to the other, but the pain remained. How could I do that? He whispered to himself. He had been regular at church for years. He read the Bible almost daily. He prayed, attended gatherings, and sincerely believed he was walking on the path of God. Yet what had come out of him that day was not compassion. It was rage, and not just rage against a child. Tears slowly rolled down his face. What kind of spiritual man am I? He thought. He folded his hands over his chest and cried silently. How will I redeem myself now? On the other side of the city, Anand too was unable to sleep. The argument with the street vendor was not leaving him either. But what disturbed him even more was not the incident itself. It was the realization that had followed. For the first time in his life, Anand had clearly felt that something was fundamentally wrong within him. Until now, he had always believed that anger came from outside. Because of people, because of situations, because life was unfair. But that night, as he lay awake in darkness, a strange thought rose within him. What if the problem is not outside at all? That thought scared him. Was this realization a good thing? Or was it the beginning of something even more painful? He could not understand. He only knew one thing. The incident with the vendor was not an isolated event. Anger had always been there. It had appeared in different forms: irritation, judgment, jealousy, hurt, resentment. But this was the first time he had truly seen it. And once seen, it could not be unseen. A few days passed. Both Peter and Anand continued fighting silently with their inner turmoil. They still went to work. They still spoke to people. They still appeared normal from the outside. But within, both of them were disturbed. A kind of heaviness had entered their lives. Gradually, without planning it, both stopped going to their respective places of worship. Peter stopped going to church. Anand stopped going to the temple. Neither of them announced it. Neither of them explained it. They simply stopped. Something inside them felt broken. One evening they met in a park, as they often did. The sun was setting slowly. The sky was turning orange and purple. Children were still playing in the distance, while older people walked quietly along the path. Peter sat on the bench, looking toward the sinking sun. Anand sat beside him, but his gaze was fixed far away on the horizon, as if answers might appear from there. For a while, neither of them spoke. Then Peter broke the silence. You know what? I have stopped going to church. He said it softly, almost as if he was ashamed to admit it. Anand turned toward him in surprise. Why? Peter kept his eyes away from Anand. Didn't I tell you about that incident? The anger, the argument I had with Padre that Sunday. His voice carried sadness and exhaustion. Anand looked at him for a few moments, then lowered his own eyes. After a long pause, he said quietly, I am also having these rage issues. Peter turned immediately. There was no judgment in his eyes, only recognition. He gently placed his hand on Anand's back. For the first time in many days, both felt less alone. Why are we getting angry, Anand? Peter asked, his eyes moist again. Is this because the devil wants us to leave the path of spirituality? Anand did not answer. Because the truth was, he had been asking himself the same question. After some time, Anand spoke. I know that I am not happy. My mind is constantly occupied with negative things. And lately, I have started worrying too much. Peter listened silently. I know these worries are useless, Anand continued. Most of the time they are about things so trivial that later I myself feel surprised. Why was I thinking so much about that? The two friends sat quietly again. Just then the streetlights in the park came alive, one by one, as the sun disappeared completely below the horizon. The evening deepened, and so did their questions. Days passed. Both kept searching for answers, but no real clarity came. At last Peter decided to return to church. He felt he must at least ask for forgiveness. When he met Padre, he stood with his head lowered. Father, I am sorry, he said. Please forgive me. Padre did not reply immediately. He looked at Peter for a few seconds, then gently placed his hand on Peter's head. What got into you that day? Padre asked. Peter kept looking at the floor. I don't know, Father. It had never happened like that before. There was genuine regret in his voice. Padre sighed gently and said, read the Bible more. Keep fast. Pray sincerely. Then he blessed Peter and moved on. Peter bowed respectfully, but as he walked back home, a strange dissatisfaction remained. He had received advice, but not the answer he was searching for. Anand too decided to visit the temple priest. After listening to him, the priest advised him to read more scriptures and spiritual books. Anand nodded respectfully, but while returning, he felt the same emptiness Peter had felt. He too had received an answer, yet somehow, not the answer. Both men realized that rituals and readings might guide them, but something more direct was missing. Neither knew what. One early morning, Peter and Anand were again sitting in the park. The air was cool, birds were making soft sounds. The city had not yet fully awakened, but both men looked tired. Anand was visibly annoyed. Peter too looked deeply disturbed. No matter what I do, Anand said abruptly, external events still make me rage. Or feel lust, or jealousy, or hatred. Peter exhaled and replied, I guess even spiritual people might have these negative qualities. Anand turned sharply toward him. Do you think Jesus had these negative qualities? Peter looked at him almost fiercely. Never. He was the Son of God. Anand stared at him for a moment, then said in the same charged tone, aren't we all? Peter's expression softened. Slowly, he nodded. Anand continued, this time with pain in his voice, then what did Jesus know that we don't? How was he able not to get angry, not to fall into lust, not to be dragged by all this? Peter had no answer, neither did Anand, and then, suddenly, something happened in front of them. A young boy walking along the path stumbled over a rock and fell to the ground. At the same moment, an older man who had been walking just ahead also lost his balance slightly and fell partly over him. The older man got up immediately and shouted, what an idiot you are. The boy rose quickly and said, I am sorry, sir. It was obvious that the boy was not at fault. He too had fallen because of the rock. But the older man kept scolding him. He used harsh, humiliating words. The boy remained quiet. He did not argue. He did not defend himself. He did not react. For nearly 10 minutes, the man kept speaking harshly. Then finally he walked away. The boy stayed there for another couple of minutes, dusted his clothes, and then began walking slowly through the park. Peter and Anand were both staring. Did you notice something? Peter asked quietly. Anand kept watching the boy. Then after a pause, Anand asked, tell me, what did you see? Peter replied with astonishment. He didn't get angry. Anand remained silent. His eyes were still fixed on the boy. Then he said, or maybe he was afraid of that older man. Peter did not answer, but the scene had entered both their minds deeply. The next morning, both came to the park early again. And once more, they saw the same boy. He could not have been more than 20 or 21. He was jogging very slowly, almost as if floating rather than running. There was something unusual about him. Not in his clothes, not in his face, but in his presence. There was calmness in him, a lightness, a silence. Anand suddenly stood up. Without thinking too much, he walked toward the boy. Peter followed immediately. As the boy came near, Anand raised his hand slightly. Excuse me, can I ask you something? The boy stopped at once and smiled. Sure, you can, sir. Anand hesitated for just a second, then asked directly, do you get angry? Peter came and stood beside him. The boy looked at both of them and smiled a little more, as though he understood much more than the question itself. "Why should I get angry?" he replied gently. Peter stepped forward. "Why not? People do irritating things. Many situations are out of our control." The boy nodded. "I think," he said, "you are asking how I should respond in such circumstances." "React means anger, right?" Anand asked, slightly irritated. The boy shook his head softly. "No, I said reaction. Anger is only one possible reaction." Peter and Anand looked at him, confused. There was no arrogance in the boy, only clarity. Then Peter said, almost surprisingly to himself, "Actually, we want to know your view on the spiritual journey." The boy became still for a moment. Then he answered in a voice so calm that both men felt it more than heard it. "It is an internal journey. So all correction has to be made within. What you are seeing outside is only a reflection of the enemy within." Peter and Anand kept staring at him. His words were simple, but they struck somewhere deep. Neither of them knew what to ask next. The boy gave a small smile and began to jog away. They instinctively stepped aside to give him way. Then, after moving a little ahead, he turned back and said, "Search within. You already have your answers. And make that enemy your friend." With that, he ran on, leaving both Peter and Anand standing there in silence, surprised, moved, and shaken in a new way. For the first time, both felt that perhaps the real battle of the spiritual journey was not with the world. Not with other people, not even with religion itself, but with something hidden within them. Something they had always blamed on others. Something they had never truly tried to understand. And as the morning light slowly spread across the park, a new chapter quietly began inside both of them. To be continued, Part 3. Can the enemy within become a friend? And with that, Peter and Anand were left standing in the park, watching the young boy disappear into the distance. The boy appeared so simple, yet there was something about him that felt unusually profound. He seemed to understand things that Peter and Anand had been struggling with for years. And yet, instead of giving them a clear answer, his words left them even more puzzled. Peter and Anand had spent years following rituals, reading scriptures, attending prayers, and faithfully practicing what their respective religions had taught them. They believed that by following these dogmas and traditions, their spiritual journey would naturally progress. But the boy suggested something very different. According to him, the real enemy that was preventing their spiritual growth was not outside them, not in the world, not in other people, and certainly not in temples or churches. The enemy was within them. This idea left both of them deeply confused. Was the boy oversimplifying something that was actually very complex? Or was he revealing a truth so simple that they had overlooked it all their lives? Perhaps their real journey had only just begun. We will explore this further in the next part of the story. I hope you are enjoying this journey with Peter and Anand and perhaps seeing reflections of your own life and experiences in it. After all, the spiritual path is something each of us walks in our own way. If you feel differently about the story or have your own perspective, do share your thoughts in the comments. Your insights may help others on their journey as well. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, and stay connected with Freedom for Eternity for the next part of the story.